I am really excited about what I've done with the Weather Factory game engine this time. Enemies now look like they are made of gems instead of looking like tornadoes with claws and evil eyes. When you kill an enemy, it explodes outward into a shower of gems that bounce all over the place, sometimes for a hilariously long amount of time. I took some of Saskew's advice and started playing around with physics, and he was right. Simulating physics really does add something to the game. I could see myself playing around with this and adding bouncing projectile attacks for, say, Pinkie Pie, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The old enemy graphics are still around in the editor if for some reason you want them, but by default the enemies look like they're made of gems. This is what I wanted all along. Enemies that look more like obstacles than like enemies. If it doesn't look like you're shooting at living things, that helps to make this game feel like it's non-violent. And in fact, in the lore for this, really all the playable characters are doing when they're shooting at these enemies is breaking the spells that are turning these gems into golems. And I figure that makes this more kid-friendly in the long run. The overarching story for Weather Factory Meltdown and the other chapters in the narrative is that these gem golems are appearing and causing Equestria problems, but no one really knows who's summoning them or what their goals are. But I digress. At the moment, there isn't an actual inventory system to keep track of the gems that you've collected, but I plan to add one at a future time, and add all kinds of other things that you can do with those gems once you've collected them, like make equipable items, change the color of your clothing, use them as fuel for spells, even grinding them up to make rainbows. If you remember the rainbow mixing room in the Weather Factory, there were signs on the walls warning employees not to let the rainbows get diluted with water or else they will be ruined. And when it's raining indoors and the water ruins rainbows, you can kiss a year's supply of rainbows goodbye. That's right, no rainbows all year long. You can imagine Rainbow Dash will freak out at this possibility, but I'm planning on a plot point where there's a pony in Ponyville who has a machine that recycles garbage into rainbows, and if you dump gems into his machine it produces even more. And ideally, as you explore Equestria, the more gems you put into his machine, the more rainbows you'll see in the background. I have to admit that there is one problem with this new setup, though. While I was designing the Weather Factory, enemies still did not drop gems, and so I placed enemies over bottomless pits and other hazards where basically if you kill them there's no way you're going to be able to collect those gems. Also, gems only bounce off of static blocks in the tile map. They do not bounce off of rogue blocks or moving blocks. And so it's really easy for gems to get into places where you just plain can't collect them. I have a solution for this in mind, giving Rarity a gem magnet ability. In the near future I want to add magic and custom abilities to the game, and giving Rarity gem-related spells seems right up her alley. This also makes her a potentially powerful mage, even though her magic tends to specialize in gems, since all or almost all of the enemies in the game are going to be made of gems. In any case, my plans for the immediate future are to add more types of gem enemy and more bosses, and I'd like to make those enemies' graphics even more customizable so that game designers can make them look like whatever they want. Also, before I move on to things like a magic or inventory system or parallax scrolling backgrounds, I'd like to add friendly NPCs to the game engine and at least a rudimentary dialogue system. I have a feeling artists will be more likely to show interest in helping with this project if they can make characters than they would be if they could only make backgrounds. In any case, it's my hope that adding this to the game, changing the way the enemies look and adding gems to the game, will make it a more enjoyable experience overall.